completely controlled by the Archbishop of Baltimore. There was a secret wire between Baltimore and the White House telling the president what to do, at least since the days of Grover Cleveland.
Ronald Reagan was the one who started off making a deal which started to contravene the Constitution of the United States. Harry Truman tried to do that in 1951. He got such a blast, even from the pulpit by his own minister, when he wanted to recognize the Vatican, that he dropped it. But Ronald Reagan, no problem. He just did it. One of the earliest goals as president, Reagan says, was to recognize the Vatican as a state and to make them an ally. That's contrary to the American Constitution. So by 1987, Pope John Paul visits the United States. President Reagan meets him and he says, "As you exhort us, we will listen." This is not separation of church and state. For with all our hearts we yearn to make this good land better still. The Pope is quoted as saying, "I come as a friend of America and of all Americans, Catholics, Orthodox, Jews, all men of good will."
2,000 years ago, John recorded regarding the second beast of Revelation 13, "And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men, and he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live." Protestant America, a nation whose founding fathers clearly understood the nature and danger of Rome and who ardently sought to prevent her from gaining ascendancy in North America, would ironically become the very power to finally lead the whole world back to Rome. One of the prime reasons for the existence of America, freedom from papal oppression, would now become that which she would seek to make null and void. Directors of the CIA, justices of the Supreme Court, military leaders and heads of state, now, whether they realized it or not, became the vassals and puppets of a diabolical system that sought only supremacy and freedom for herself alone.
2,400 of his faithful here to welcome him. He's waving to the crowd. Archbishop Regali is alongside the Pope as he shakes hands with the First Lady.
We honor you for helping to lead a revolution of values and spirit in Central Europe and the former Soviet Union, freeing millions to live by conscience, not coercion, and freeing all of us from the constant fear of nuclear war. Your Holiness, on behalf of all of us gathered here today, indeed on behalf of all the people of our beloved nation, we welcome you back to America.
The people of the United States have been a favored people. But when they restrict religious liberty, surrender Protestantism, and give countenance to popery, the measure of their guilt will be full. National apostasy will be registered in the books of heaven. The result of this apostasy will be national ruin.
The push toward instituting the Roman image in America was not just confined to political and judicial quarters. Religious leaders, knowingly or unknowingly, under the auspices of spiritual unity and in the cause of bringing the nation back to God, would begin pushing for religious legislation and a tighter unity between church and state. One of the major pleas is a call to legislate Sunday sacredness. Little do the churches of the Christian world realize that by legislating Sunday, they will be writing into law the very mark and seal of papal authority.
It's very fascinating what the Roman Catholic Church has to say today on this issue. Most Christians, it comes straight from them, not from me. I didn't make this up. Most Christians assume that Sunday is the biblically approved day of worship. The Roman Catholic Church protests that it transferred Christian worship from the biblical Sabbath, Saturday, to Sunday, and that to try to argue that the change was made in the Bible is both dishonest and a denial of Catholic authority. If Protestantism wants to base its teachings only on the Bible, it should worship on Saturday. It was upon this very point that the Reformation was condemned by the Council of Trent. Wow! Did you know that the whole Reformation failed at the Council of Trent because of the Sabbath issue? The Protestants claim to stand upon the written word only. They profess to hold the Scripture alone as the standard of faith. They justify their revolt by the plea that the Church has apostatized from the written word and follows tradition. Now, the Protestants claim that they stand upon the written word only is not true. The profession of holding Scripture alone as the standard of faith is false. Proof. The written word explicitly adjoins the observance of the seventh day as the Sabbath. They do not observe the seventh day, but reject it. That was his argument. If they truly hold to the Scriptures alone as their standard, they would be observing the seventh day, as enjoined by the Scriptures. Yet they not only reject the observance of the Sabbath enjoined in the written word, but they have adopted and do practice the observance of Sunday, which they have only tradition of the Church. Consequently, the claim of Scripture alone as the standard fails, and the doctrine of Scripture and tradition as essential is fully established, the Protestants themselves being judged.
Rome boasts about the fact that she has changed Sabbath into Sunday, and she even goes so far as to say that the fact that she's done that is a mark of her ecclesiastical authority in religious matters. She doesn't try to hide it. In fact, she boasts about the fact that she did it, and that is her mark of ecclesiastical authority. And when we think of that mark and realizing that the beast, which is a symbol referring to the papal system, is going to enforce that mark one day with laws where no man can buy or sell. And if that doesn't succeed, the time will come in Revelation 13:15 that they will even pass laws where God's people will be killed for being obedient to God and to His Word.
The very thing that became the point on which the papacy had cause to condemn the Protestant movement at the Council of Trent would now rise up as the ghost of history past to be the spiritual magnet to draw all the lost daughters of Rome back into her fold again. The Protestant movement, all its centuries of protest and effort to stay separate from a system which its very founders described as the Antichrist, would now cease to exist, as if it should never have been born in the first place. For all intents and purposes, it can truly be said of today's Christian world, Protestantism is dead.
Suddenly Protestantism collapsed. Weltbild shows the Pope shaking hands with Martin Luther, and it says, from heretic to fellow traveler, from Ketzer zum Weggefährten. And in the biggest Protestant church in Berlin, they have again pictures and statues of Mary and candles and all of those things. Then the Synod of the Lutheran Church got together, heiße Eisen, alte Zöpfe, the old battle between them. Der Papst soll nicht mehr Antichrist genannt werden. The Pope may no longer be called Antichrist. So, that's a big step from Martin Luther, would you agree? And then, I thought I was going to die. Germany calls to ask, forgive Luther. So now, this year, at the Congress in Italy, where the Pope resided, the new Pope, the Protestant Church, the Lutherans, a whole section of them said, we want to be part of the Mother Church again.
Indeed, according to Rome, There is only one true church.
The present Pope wrote this. The churches are no sisters of ours. You know these statements. It must always be clear that the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Universal Church is not the sister but the mother of all the churches. That was Cardinal Ratzinger, the present Pope Benedict.
Some have come to the conclusion that Rome has changed, that she has repented of her bloody megalomaniac past. But these evidences revealed in the very current acts and views of this system should send a clear signal to the world that Rome never changes. The warnings of Revelation chapter 13 should rekindle the fires of Bible-believing Protestantism in the hearts and minds of all who value freedom of religion and would rather choose to bear the mark of God's authority than to carry the mark of the Roman curse. In chapter 13, verses 16 to 17, these words are spoken with regard to the role and consequences of America bringing all nations back to Rome.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. The final identifying qualification of the Roman power is given in the closing verse of Revelation chapter 13. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
In homage to the papacy, the United States will not be alone. The influence of Rome in the countries that once acknowledged her dominion is still far from being destroyed. Romanism in the Old World and apostate Protestantism in the New will pursue a similar course towards those who honor the divine precepts. When Sunday observance shall be enforced by law, then whoever shall transgress the command of God to obey a precept, which has no higher authority than that of Rome, will thereby honor popery above God. They will thereby accept the sign of allegiance to Rome, the mark of the beast. A power from beneath is working to bring about the last great scenes in the drama, Satan coming as Christ and working with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in those who are binding themselves together in secret societies. Those who are yielding to the passion for confederation are working out the plans of the enemy. The cause will be followed by the effect.